Welcome back to Football Daily, where today we bring you 10 transfers that nearly happened and, if they had, could have rewritten the history of your football club. 10. Gareth Bale to Man United. We begin at Old Trafford, where rumours circulate every single summer of a move for Real Madrid's Gareth Bale. But back in 2007, Man United could have picked up the Welsh wonder for much less than the world record sums they'd have to cough up now. In fact, Bale was available for just £10 million, and Sir Alex Ferguson was allegedly so determined to secure the lauded youngster that he offered the money up front and to loan him back to the Saints for 18 months. But with the club umming and ahhing over their financial difficulties and Bale's worth, United's bid fell through, and when they finally decided they needed to sell, Spurs came swooping in. Bale finally started fulfilling his potential at White Hart Lane in 2010, a year after Ronaldo left Old Trafford for the Bernabeu. By that point, Bale could have learned from his Portuguese idol as well as his compatriot Giggs and taken over from CR7 as United's terroriser-in-chief. 9. Ronaldinho to St Mirren. Now, we all know about Man United missing out on Ronaldinho in 2003, and let's face it, it didn't hit them too hard, as they bought Cristiano Ronaldo instead. But just 3 years earlier, something far more interesting could have happened. The young Brazilian, still at Grêmio, was keen on a move to Europe, and when St Mirren made an approach, he jumped at the chance to join the Scottish outfit, who were in fact heading for relegation from the SPL. However, the proposed move broke down after Ronnie became embroiled in a fake passport scandal. He was clearly that desperate to get out, and St Mirren went down a month later. Had the serial trickster gone to Paisley, he could have saved the club from their doom before moving to a club in keeping with his high standards. Probably that summer. Oh, what could have been. 8. Pavel Nedved to PSV Eindhoven. In 1996, PSV Eindhoven had just lost out to Ajax in the Eredivisie, and Sparta Prague's 23-year-old playmaker Pavel Nedved was in the spotlight, having helped his club win a third successive league title. Furthermore, the Red and Whites were about to sell Ronaldo to Barcelona, and so were in desperate need of fresh creative talent. With a deal for the 23-year-old Czech maestro all in place, PSV decided to wait until after that summer's Euros to finalise payment in contract terms. It proved very costly indeed. The unfancied Czechs stormed to the final with Nedved their star player, and suddenly the whole of Europe was watching. Lazio swooped, and he made his way to Rome instead. PSV may have won the following season's Eredivisie without Nedved's services, but Frank Arneson, the club's sporting director, later said that the transfer cock-up was his biggest regret. By 2001, Nedved had been bought by Juventus to replace Zinedine Zlatan, and 2 years later, he won the Ballon d'Or. 7. Zlatan Ibrahimovic to Arsenal. Back in 2000, Zlatan Ibrahimovic was still a teenager and playing in his native Sweden. Just a year later, he would join Ajax to kickstart a trophy-laden journey around Europe, but he had already stopped by North London on the way. Ibra was given the number 9 jersey and even posed for photos, brimming with joy. But there was one small issue. Arsene Wenger wanted to see Ibra perform in a trial before snapping him up, and the young striker had none of it. He later said, "Zlatan doesn't do trials." Of course he doesn't, and instead opted for a move to Amsterdam. Arsenal were in the midst of a golden era at the time, but signing the Swedish attacker could have added even more pizzazz to the Gunners' forward line. Furthermore, in 2006, Dennis Bergkamp retired, and at that point you would have struggled to find many better replacements for the Dutchman. 6. Michael Essien to Burnley. Not long before Ibrahimovic refused a trial at Arsenal, Michael Essien had one at Burnley of all places. A star of the 1999 Under-17 World Cup, Essien attracted big interest from the Clarets, then still languishing in Division 2, now League 1. However, the Lancashire club were unable to offer the young midfielder a contract, as he demanded £60 a week, which breached Burnley's rules for trainee wages. They really should have made an exception, as just 6 years later, Chelsea signed him from Lyon for over £24 million, and he signed a contract worth £80,000 a week. For all you maths heads, that's over 1,300 times the amount he asked for at Turf Moor. To say he would have been a sound investment is an understatement, and after buying the club in 2007, Brendan Flood admitted he was gutted when he heard about the mistake. 5. Pelé to Hannover 96. Back in 1964, German outfit Hannover had just won promotion to the newly formed Bundesliga and were looking to make a splash in the biggest possible way. Pelé, the world's ultimate footballing superstar, was allegedly set on a move to Germany. His unreal talents and commercial pull meant that all of Europe's top teams were watering at the mouth for the Brazilian, but somehow Hannover got in there first, as club official Hans-David Ziegra worked his magic through his Portuguese-speaking contacts. A deal was reportedly agreed with Pelé and his club Santos, but at the last minute, the move was blocked by the Brazilian government and the striker had to stay in Brazil. That season, Hannover finished 5th, 8 points off Werder Bremen in 1st. With the Brazilians' goals, they probably could have made that up, and since then, they still haven't won the Bundesliga. 4. Garrincha to Juventus. Now from the hero of 1958 to the bent-legged genius of 1962. Following Brazil's Garrincha-inspired victory at the World Cup in Chile, all eyes were on the master dribbler, and a year later, Juventus lined up a world record bid. Juve manager Paulo Amaral had coached Garrincha in his prime at Botafogo and was ready to make him the first ever $1 million footballer. But when Amaral's scouts watched the winger play during the Brazilian club's European tour, it quickly became clear that his knee injury was much worse than first thought. What they didn't know was that Garrincha had played an extra 2 matches in 3 days on top of the 2 they saw him turn out for in Florence, meaning his performances were well below standard as he was pretty tired, and this influenced the old lady's decision to lower their offer to $700,000. It was refused and Europe was starved of one of the world's greatest ever attackers. 3. Radamel Falcao to Aston Villa. As hard as it is to imagine now, back in the late 2000s, Aston Villa were challenging for Europe and had formed a solid team with the likes of Gareth Barry, Stilian Petrov and Ashley Young all in their prime. In 2008, a little-known Colombian striker called Radamel Falcao was beginning to impress at River Plate, and the club reportedly offered the 22-year-old to Villa manager Martin O'Neill for just £5 million. But O'Neill was unsure that Falcao could recreate his scoring form in the Premier League and turned down the move. Instead, he decided to buy Emil Heskey from Wigan the following January, deeming him a much safer bet. In his 4 years at Villa Park, Heskey scored just 14 goals, and during this time, Falcao netted 124 while playing for 3 different clubs. It was a sign of things to come for the Villains. 2. Yaya Touré to Arsenal. In 2005, Arsenal sold their captain Patrick Vieira to Juventus, and their failure to replace the Frenchman in midfield is seen by many to be a large factor in their struggle to win another Premier League title since. But in 2003, they very nearly had their man. Kolo Touré signed for the Gunners a year earlier, and having impressed in his first season, Wenger took a punt on his younger brother Yaya. The midfielder even played in a pre-season friendly against Barnet, but when Arsenal offered him a contract, he instead opted to join Ukrainian side Metalurg Donetsk. Vieira and Touré both ended up moving to Man City in 2010, and under the Frenchman's mentorship, the Ivorian grew into the league's most complete midfielder, playing a huge role in City's 2 title triumphs, if only. 1. Zinedine Zidane to Blackburn Rovers. The summer of 1995 was a golden time for fans of Blackburn Rovers. The club had just beaten rivals Man United to the Premier League crown, were readying themselves for their first Champions League campaign, and still had a year before their star striker Alan Shearer upped sticks to Newcastle. So you would have thought that it was the perfect time for them to build on their success, and manager Kenny Dalglish was an ambitious man. He had his eye on France, and was keen to sign a 23-year-old who was making waves in Bordeaux. His name was Zinedine Zidane. However, when he put this to chairman Jack Walker, he was met with the reply, "Why would you want to sign Zidane when we have Tim Sherwood?" Oh dear. Blackburn could have had a footballer who was on his way to becoming the world's best, but instead chose to sign Matty Holmes from West Ham and Adam Reed from Darlington. Figure that one out.
So I hope you guys enjoyed that. As usual, let us know what you thought in the comments below. And if you liked that, why not check out the video that's on screen right now? Click it, it's a good one. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe.